If you've ever hesitated to ask for what you want or need, we're here to help because it's really common and it gets in the way of a full life. So, we're going to help you uncover not only why you've been doing it, but how to change that behavior.
Over the years, I've learned just how very difficult it is for many people to ask for what they want, to say what they mean when they need to. And in fact, one study recently found that 90% of people, 90% in the preceding 8 months, at least one time felt unsafe asking for what they wanted or saying what they meant. I'm Cindy Stauffer, if we haven't met yet. I'm a relationship coach and psychologist.
And I'm MK Mueller, the author of 8 to Great and the 8 to Great Life Coach Training. We are delighted to be here with you today. My journey with learning to speak up for myself included a dysfunctional marriage where I did not speak up for myself. And unfortunately, over the years, what happened was the power balance got way, way off. And eventually, when I would ask for what I wanted, he would fly into a rage and we eventually divorced. After that, after I learned some assertiveness skills, I had healthier relationships because right from the beginning, I was able to ask for what I want, and it was a more balanced, equal relationship. So let's define what we mean by assertiveness. So we have a written out one here. It's the ability to express your needs and feelings and ask for what you want without violating the rights of others. Seems simple, right? So, what would a violation be? Well, certainly physical aggression would be one, but the other one is destructive criticism. Now, in my book, 8 to Great, we talk about the definition of destructive criticism as attacking someone's character. That was stupid, or you always blankety blank, huh? That's just not true that you always. So that's destructive. That's attacking their character. But constructive criticism is really good for us, right? It could be, hey, when I first started speaking, sometimes my audience members would say, could you repeat that? You were speaking too quickly. Or the mic isn't loud enough. That's constructive criticism. We need that to grow. So it could be as simple as asking someone to close the cupboard doors. Come across a lot of couples that have that particular issue. Kind of interesting.
Or to put the toilet seat up or down.
Oh, that too. Even if you're in a relationship where you feel a lot of resentment, maybe even feel like a victim from time to time, it's never too late to change. And we're going to give you, again, baby steps to get that turned around today.
So let's interject with an assertive request right now. If you want to learn more about habits for mental and physical health, please just take a second to hit subscribe down below. We really would appreciate it.
All of us started out life assertively. As children, well, spend some time with a 3-year-old. Hello. I will never forget. Last Christmas, my niece and nephew were visiting, and they had a 3-year-old who I sat down to play with her, and she said, okay, I'm going to be the person who runs away, and you're going to be the person who finds me. And at first, you're not going to be able to find me, but then you will be. This whole script. And I loved how clear she was about what she wanted, right? So again, all of us were assertive as kids, but then something happens. So let's take a look at what keeps us from being assertive as an adult.
Here's some reasons people struggle to be assertive. And everybody doesn't have the same reason. One of them, and a fairly typical one, is fear of conflict. Oh my goodness, if I say I, what I mean, it's going to upset this person. They're going to see me as very aggressive. Another reason is they might just not know how or what to say. They just draw a blank. Sometimes they believe their needs are unimportant or that they don't even really know what they want. Let's go back to that first reason, fear of confrontation or rejection. I would say this is the most common. We hold back because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. If I say no, they'll be upset, or if I tell them what I'm thinking, or what I want, they'll think I'm selfish. They won't like me. They'll think I'm coming across as mean or aggressive. And actually, one woman told me at one time, um, I think it's really difficult to be assertive because I don't want to disappoint anyone. I, this is the most common concern I've heard over the years.
And isn't it interesting because we're not living authentically. So they're going to find out sooner or later. And I have a perfect story for this. I had a coaching client who we were in the middle of this lesson, and he shared the following story. He said, it was our 25th anniversary. And he said, I want you to know I adore my wife. But it was after this party. It was a great party. And I thought, oh, she's in a good mood. This will be the perfect time to let her know this secret I've been keeping. And he said, sweetheart, I can't wait. And I'm looking forward to this and this and this and this. And he said, but I do have one little request. And she goes, yeah. And he said, I really don't like ice in my drinks. So you don't have to put ice in my drinks. And she just started laughing so hard. Because for 25 years, she'd been putting extra ice in his drinks. Why? When they met, she was a waitress. And the other waitress said, do you see that cute guy over there at table 4? He really loves ice. And she wanted to impress him. So she gave him extra ice that day and had been giving him extra ice for 25 years. So that talk about fear of conflict. And that's even with someone that you feel love towards. So it's pretty funny stuff.
And not to mention, fortunately, they had a good sense of humor about it. It could be very embarrassing to someone too if they say, "Oh my gosh, all this time I had no idea that you didn't like this or that you wanted this." So it
Yeah,
could be
thank heaven she laughed,
right,
right? Yeah.
right. Good for them. Probably why their marriage is lasting so
Yeah.
long. Okay. Another reason people struggle with being assertive is they're afraid that they look aggressive. I recall hearing from a woman I know that she finds it's very difficult as a woman to be assertive in the workplace, particularly with men. And she said, as a manager, I find it a lot easier to be assertive with women than with men because I know that women are less likely to push back. Now that's her personal experience, but it also speaks to uh, how difficult it is for her to be assertive with males in that particular situation.
Right. And it's slowly changing, right? But it used to be that women were called a certain name when they were bold and asked for what they wanted. And men were, it's just accepted. So thank heavens it's changing, right? Reason number 2 for why we're not assertive is we don't really know what to say or the wording for how to say it.
And I'll give you another example with that. I know a mother who said, "Oh, I can be assertive with my kids. That's no problem, but not others. It's not in my DNA. I'd much rather not get what I want to keep the peace. My mind goes blank. I can't even think of asking what I need or when I need to be assertive. I can't find the words." So another example would be someone asking you to do something you don't want to do. How many of us have fallen prey to this little trap? And just to keep it easy, saying, okay, I'll do that. So some assertive options under those circumstances. Since so many of you have had this problem, you've been invited to a party that you don't want to go to, you've been asked to join something you really don't want to be a part of, or you just don't have the time for it right now. Should you be giving all sorts of excuses and talking a whole lot about it? Probably not. We've got some easy little lines for you to use if that situation comes up.
And I have a good example. They asked me to be in charge of a certain booth at the church fair. And it was awful. it was something like the grocery bag where you twirl something and see which grocery bag you get. And I had to get all the groceries. I had to bag them up. I had to yeah, no. And I said, oh, no, I won't be doing that, but thank you for asking. And she said, oh, but you have to. It's the hardest job of the whole fair and everyone likes you.
And
I said,
that's the reason you should do it
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
everyone
I said,
likes
well,
you.
I don't agree that everyone likes me, but I don't like the task, and I'll do other things. I'll even be on the committee. I'm just not going to be in charge of it. But you'll find somebody who really wants to. And guess what? I got a call 2 weeks later from Christina. I remember, and she said, but oh, I hear you'd be willing to be on the, grocery bag. And I said, oh yeah, yeah, congratulations on getting in charge of this committee, Christina. And she goes, I know, I just moved to town, and it's been so great that they asked me to do this, right? So, it's such a win-win. But anyway, so here are some phrases. No, that won't work for me, but thanks for asking.
And you could say, well, I won't be able to do that or make it, but maybe next time.
Or I appreciate you asking me, but you'll need to get someone else.
Or simply, sorry, that isn't good for me.
Or, and I really needed, not I needed, I did use this last week, and it was very true. Someone asked me to be on a committee, and I said, I'm on my HOA board, and it's becoming more of a responsibility, and I won't be able to help.
Here's another thing you can say. I have some other things lined up, but I really appreciate the offer.
And last but not least, just be simple. I can't help you, but good luck. I'm sure you'll find the perfect person. Uh, I just want to talk about why it's so important to ask for what we want. So, one of the stories that comes to mind is when I worked at a radio station and I was the traffic girl in Omaha, Nebraska. And the plane one day up at 3,000 feet is running along. And that 2-second pause of silence felt like 2 minutes. And I screamed at the pilot and I said, what was that? And he goes, oh, it's an old plane. Sometimes the engine just stops. And I go, ugh.
Thank
And
you.
so I went to the owner of the station and I said, I don't want the engine to stop with the mother of my two kids in the plane. So I'm giving you a week's notice, and thanks for the opportunity, but I just won't be able to continue this particular responsibility. I was so glad that I spoke up, but then so were they, because a week later, what happened was they called me in and said, we're downing the plane. I said, what? And they said, well, we want to keep you, so we're going to have you do the traffic reports in the studio, listening to the scanners, the police scanner, and we'll have a couple people driving around calling in about some of the major intersections. We just won't use the plane anymore. Hello.
Sweet. The third reason people aren't assertive is they believe that their needs are unimportant. And this could stem from some childhood experiences where that message was given to someone as a child. Um, and it also could come from someone believing that their worth is based on their ability to meet the needs of others. Also, a very, very common reason for people to lack assertiveness.
Yeah, and I've heard people say, "Oh, I don't want to be selfish." And I went, "Selfish?" So let's go back to that radio station example. What was selfish about that? Taking care of myself, right? Knowing they have options for how to take care of their situation. It's self-loving. I think I'd use that word. I really don't use selfish very often because I think it's been so misinterpreted and overused and used as an excuse. And just to go back to the radio station example, at the end of the year, they did a report on the best business decision of the year, and it was downing the plane. So, reason number 4 is we really don't know what we want.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
to not know what you want. Actually, someone recently told me she isn't even sure of what she wants. It's just easier to go with the status quo than express what she needs. She said, I just like to live on an even keel, an even playing field. I never knew what I wanted because I never even thought about it. Imagine that.
Yeah, and they don't know how they're feeling,
Yeah,
right?
she said, I don't even feel, I really don't even feel my own emotions at times.
Right. So if you're in that situation, journaling is your friend. Well, certainly getting a coach is always helpful, or going to a pastor or a counselor. But just sometimes just that writing it out. Right now, I'm feeling, and really getting it out, not worrying that anybody's going to read it because you can rip it up or burn it when you're finished. But just saying, right now I'm feeling, and just keep writing that stem. Right now I'm feeling. Right now I'm feeling until it just gets easier and your emotions come up, because we'll do other podcasts on the fact that mad and sad are not negative emotions. They're very natural, very healthy, and yeah, just part of life. So before we get into the 4 steps for how to be assertive, there's a couple of most effective ways to do that.
In 8 to Great, we firmly believe that communicating in person is the best way to communicate in general. And actually, that's not really news to anyone. However, there is a tendency at times for people to send a text or um, an email and not even pick up the phone, which is even better than text or email. But we encourage you to take the in-person approach. We Many of us probably remember that one episode in Sex and the City when Carrie was lamenting that she got her boyfriend broke up with her on a post-it note. She woke up.
Oh, I forgot
She
that one.
woke up and came out, and there was a note on her counter that he was breaking up with her. And the whole episode, she's saying, on a post-it note.
That is such a perfect example. Yeah, it's the chicken way out, right? And this assertiveness takes courage. And I love the fact that courage comes from the French word heart, cœur, right? Courage. It's so important to be authentically ourselves and have the courage to face someone, even if they're not going to like the answer. Life goes on, and everybody's going to be disappointed from time to time, and everybody survives it. Isn't that interesting? Well, Cindy, you've got a couple more great stories. If you'd share a couple of those.
Yeah. So in 8 to Great, we say, if I had no fear, what would I do? So when it comes to being assertive, what would you do if you had no fear? And I'll tell you a story about a mother of a boy he has a lot of energy. He really challenges his teachers, plural, authority. And the teachers have met with the mom and tell her a lot about his misbehaviors in school. And she's believed for a few years the teachers really aren't managing this very well. And it occurred to her after she met with the teachers and principal in a meeting that all this time she's been focused on what the teachers want and how she can make life easier for the teachers,
Mm,
when really what she needed to do was advocate for her son. And she felt like a different person, a different mother after she started doing that. She thought, what am I doing? Why am I trying to please them? Which was really a real eye opener for her and very likely to help her to be more assertive, particularly in this area in the future.
great. And the young man did better after that?
Yes,
Felt
yes. Of
felt
course,
listened to, probably.
particularly by his mother.
Yeah,
Apparently,
respected.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. So we also have to find ways to set limits and say no. How many times have you avoided saying no to something only to later regret not having done so? And I will tell you from my personal experience, I have a tendency to get involved with a lot of things, and people ask me to lead this or join that. And for much of my life, I was one of those people who thrived off of the approval I got from other people for doing what they wanted me to do. And I think it stemmed from my own childhood. But things reached a point where I thought, I'm not really hurting anyone by saying no if I need to. And MK, I think your example about the plane was a perfect example. Well, first of all, you were also thinking about your safety for the sake of your children. But in the long run, you're being authentic and saying, I don't want to do this. I want to take care of me. Actually, had amazing results.
And the same thing with the parish, right? With that the parish fair or bazaar. Christina won because I released it. I always say if you're doing something you don't want to be doing, someone else does want to do it, and you need to get out of their way. And that's even been true at work sometimes when people say, "Oh, I've been doing this part." I said, "Well, there might be somebody at work that really wants to do that part." They go, "Oh, no." And then they'll say, "Hey, would anybody want to help me with this?" And, find that people come out of the woodwork. So it is interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody has different desires.
And it can actually be a gift to another person. If we can say to ourselves, you aren't necessarily the best person at this, you might be giving someone else an opportunity that they otherwise would not have had.
Yeah, it's the difference between living a I want life and an I should life. And what we say in 8 to Great is don't should on yourself, don't should on other people.
Right, right. Okay, so to shift gears a little bit, we have 4 steps for assertively asking for what you want, and this comes from the 8 to Great book.
Okay, so there's a pre-step, first of all, and that is, have you got a minute? Because, my famous example of all the couples I've worked with is, he comes home and she goes right into asking for things. And it's been shown that men need just some downtime. It's just how they're made chemically. Testosterone has to rebuild and all that good stuff. So it's just really important to allow people to say yes or no. So if you say, "Have you got a minute?" and they say, "No, not right now," you can always say, "Okay, can we talk for 5 minutes after dinner?" It's just a simple request. But of course, not asking might be, speaking against deaf ears, and then you just get resentful again because you're not listening to, well, you didn't ask. Okay, so anyway. So that's the pre-step. But then the 4 steps are when you, I feel, because, therefore. Okay. So again, the first step is when you, and this is where you give one example, maybe two at the most, of when you did this thing. So I'm going to give an example here of a mom who had been fussing at her teenage son that he was leaving his books, clothes, and shoes right in front of the door every day. And it was a trip hazard for other people. So he'd go downstairs to his bedroom and leave all this stuff right next to the door. She'd been harping on him. And so she took the class and we helped her work through this. So she started instead with, when you left your clothes, not when you leave, because if you say when you leave your clothes, that means all the time, and that's going to be destructive criticism, right? But when you say when you left your things in front of the door today and yesterday, so that's giving the pattern. So that's the when you step.
And the next step, the second step is I feel. So you express a feeling, not an opinion, not saying, I feel that you did such and such. That's not a feeling. You own your own feelings. It's your feeling word. I felt, for example, upset when you blah, 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 or I felt frustrated, or I felt hurt, I felt sad.
Right. So to go back to that example, when you left your books, clothes, and shoes right in front of the door, I felt frustrated and discouraged. And then the third step is because. Now, here you don't want to say because you are so. Again, that's right. That's not taking personal responsibility. Because it looks like, because it seems like, so because it seems like you're not respecting our home because it's a safety hazard, whatever the reason is, just sharing your because.
And then the fourth step is therefore. If you feel it's necessary to describe a future action or a consequence, if the situation doesn't improve, as long as it's not done so aggressively, that's one way to do that. And then you say, thanks for listening.
So to close up the story, and this is again a true example, the mom came up with, therefore, if you do it again, I'm going to take the items to a safe locked place and you'll have to buy them back from me in order to get them back. And he's a freshman in high school. He said, I don't have a job. Where would I get the money? She goes, oh, no problem. I made a list of tasks you can do and how much I'll pay for each one. So he didn't believe her because what do we know? Men believe what women do.
Women believe what men say.
Yeah, so yeah, but men go, yeah, she says that, but and we're responsible for that because often we don't follow through. But anyway, so he didn't believe her. So he left his stuff there the next day. She takes them to the trunk of the car and hands him the bill. And she said, here's how much I'm going to charge to get each of these things back. And he goes, what? And she goes, and here's the list of tasks that you can do. Well, he begrudgingly did that and then never did it again, which is great. But it's just so important. It's not necessary when you say, oh, I remember a beautiful, beautiful married 50 years couple, and he retired before she did. And she came home one day and was telling him how to, that there was a better way to load the dishwasher. And he sat her down and he said, dear sweet love, do you have a minute? And she said, yes. And he said, when you're at work, you make decisions all day long. But when you come home and you make a decision about one of the very few things I have responsibility for, I feel a little frustrated and upset because I just want some things that I still can make decisions about. Therefore, if we could just let that go. It's pretty funny.
If you want more classes or one-on-one coaching, we're here to help. I'm a relationship coach, helping people in their relationships with their bosses, their spouses, their children, and sometimes even themselves.
And I'm an 8 to Great coach, and both of us are using this 8 to Great process that we have lived and seen change so many lives so beautifully. If you want to become a life coach, please email me and get in touch with us through the comments at the bottom of this. And just like Cindy became a coach in just 5 weeks, we'll be able to make that happen as well. And remember to subscribe if you've appreciated this podcast or any of the ones that we've been posting on our YouTube channel. And thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye-bye.